From KPRC 2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
It has happened again in America. Innocent victims shot and killed because of the color of their skin. Sometimes it's been because of ethnicity or religion, but in Buffalo last Saturday, according to the teenager who wrote about it beforehand and is now in jail, it was because they were black. We start our conversation this morning with Dr. James Dixon II, the pastor of the Community of Faith Church and president of the Houston area NAACP. Dina Marks is senior associate director of the Anti-Defamation League Southwest. Judson Robinson III is president and CEO of the Houston Area Urban League. Pastor Dixon, you wrote an op-ed this week describing the murders this week as perverted patriotism. What did you mean by that?
Well, thank you for having us, Cambrell. This is a serious matter. The fact is, extremists are carrying out what they believe to be patriotic actions when they embrace this conspiracy called replacement theory, the great replacement theory. It's about eliminating blacks and others who they fear seeking to dominate the country and dominate the body politic. And so with patriotic fervor, and even with religious fervor, they're carrying out these extremist actions of violence, thinking that they're satisfying their version of God and their version of American freedom, done under the banner, under the auspices of our banner, the flag and the Bible. It's both perverted theology and perverted patriotism.
And I know ADL, Dina, keeps track of trends and violence like the kind we saw in Buffalo this past week. What are some of the facts about this, as our country seems to be getting more and more of this kind of violence related to race, religious, ethnic violence?
Well, the trends are that violence fueled by hate is getting worse and worse and more. So the hate crimes statistics that came out were up. We do an audit of anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish incidents every year. This year, or in 2021, it was at its highest level since we've been keeping records. And so that also proves that one type of hate fuels other types of hate. So nobody is really safe from this hate. And what these people are doing, as Bishop Dixon says, in the name of patriotism, is actually the opposite of that, because this country was not founded on hating each other. It was providing equity and opportunity for everybody. I
know, Judson, the Urban League is on the front lines of trying to look at some of the problems and solve some of the problems as well. And I know that the Urban League and the ADL and the NAACP are all forming a group to try to kind of come up with why these problems are happening and come up with some sort of solutions. What kind of problems do you see that can be solved by people coming together with organizations such as yours?
Well, I think we all have mutual problems. You know, one of the main problems is getting people to the polls to vote, to ensure that, you know, those who reflect your interests and your beliefs are being elected. Elections are getting closer and closer. Voter suppression is continuing to occur. New laws are being put in place every day throughout the country that's helping to narrow these races down and to ensure that, you know, those who are fueled by hate, perhaps, are the ones that are getting to the polls. We have to make sure that the message is one that makes sense for the vast majority in the middle. The middle is what runs the country if they will get involved and engaged. Only 1 out of every 5 voters is going to the polls right now, you know, and that's not going to get it, when the other 4 are typically people who probably are a little bit more moderate.
This whole thing, I want to step back to Saturday. What did you think when you first heard about that? I know what my feelings were. I haven't done anything on Facebook. I had a conversation with you about it earlier. I was so angry about it because I can't separate myself. I'm a journalist. I try to be objective. I can't separate myself as a black man in America who might have been shopping, who might have been killed because I'm a black man.
Well, Cambrell, my first reactions are as a black man. I am that. I wake up black every day. And I appreciate the fact that, as Dina shared, hate crimes are escalating for Jews and for others as well. Blacks lead the list, right? And that's unfortunate. And let's just say this, blacks are the most hated people group in America. Think about that statement. I wake up black every day. Those people woke up black and went shopping. The only thing they did wrong in the mind of that extremist and people like him is they woke up black and went shopping while black. You can't change that reality. We can't be good enough. We can't play sports well enough. We can't lead businesses good enough. We can't do enough education. We can't do enough in religion. We're still characterized as an unwanted group to be expelled and exterminated by some people.
And you talked about politics being a big part of it, and Dina, I know that you keep track of these kinds of things as well. So if we know that those issues are in place and we know that those issues are rising, do we know and do we have any kind of sense about what some of the solutions might be to curbing that, other than trying to be more informative to the public? And hopefully they'll listen, but right now we know people in various silos, they listen to only who they want to listen to.
Yeah, that is one of the problems. We need to stop the spread of disinformation. That's a huge problem that we need to address. But as Judson was saying, people are being elected who not only fuel this hate, but spread this hate. We have to learn to be critical thinkers. We have to learn to judge and understand what the truth is. And certainly we have to take action. And ADL is taking all kinds of action. We're trying to get people to promote the passing of the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act. It passed in the House. Now we need to tell our senators to pass it. We're trying to get people to speak out against hate whenever and wherever it occurs. We can't do it alone. Someone who was at the vigil that Bishop Dixon had yesterday talked about how it's incumbent upon each of us, but it's our collective efforts that are going to really make a difference.
So how do you fight the battle of trying to change the landscape when you know that politics are involved in a big way, and those people who are being elected, you talked about that, you're nonprofit organizations, and sometimes you kind of, you know, that line about being a nonprofit, but you're really getting involved in the politics of it all. How do you tiptoe around that, or do you just say the heck with it and push on through?
Right. I think much like after the George Floyd incident, people looked at who was doing the work, and they tried to support those agencies that were. I'm sure Bishop Dixon, I'm sure Dina's organization, the Urban League, we all saw a bit of a rise in terms of people helping us to do the work that needs to be done. We've got to have discussions. You know, we've got the ADL working with the NAACP and the Urban League. Our young people are coming together, having discussions. They're getting to know each other, to understand each other's history and backgrounds, and building relationships now so that 10, 20 years down the road, we won't have these types of problems. We've got to make sure that all communities are talking to each other. Thirdly, we've got to get our politics together. We've got to make sure that the people that we're electing are the people that are going to represent the best for this country and for every individual in it. Every individual. And that's the only way we get there.
We're going to be talking, we have more on Newsmakers. Actually, we want you to continue to watch this conversation. We have more to come. But before I do that, you wrote, and I've heard this before, and I had a conversation with a now congressman who didn't believe this is true. But you said silence is complicity.
Yes.
Complicity is consent to allow that to happen. Your thoughts individually before we go.
Well, every leader must speak the right voice. Religiously, we've got leaders who won't speak. We've got politicians who won't speak. Think of the voices you have not heard condemning this and condemning the rhetoric that fuels it. That's complicity, that's consent, that's confirming the action even with your silence.
Everything that Bishop Dixon said, you cannot be silent whenever there is something that happens. And it can be the smallest little hateful act, but when something as egregious and horrible and big as this happens, it needs to be condemned across the board. And that's not happening. We really need to get to that point where we can't allow or tolerate this kind of hate to fester and grow and to blow up in this sort of way.
Well, you know, fear is a crippling weapon. We've got to ensure that people are willing to stand up to it, to face it, to confront it, to address it, and to come forth with the truth. We have to be willing to face the truth, and sometimes people are fearful to do that.
And we're going to continue our conversation about all of this on Newsmakers Extra. That's on the Newsmakers page on clicktohouston.com. Bishop Dixon, Dina Marks, Judson, thank you. We're going to continue this conversation.